It's 7 p.m. Thursday, June 20th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on NEWSCENTER tonight. Chinese President Xi Jinping sits down with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for talks in Pyeongyang, with bilateral ties and North Korea's denuclearization high on the agenda. We have the analysis.
The U.S. Federal Reserve holds its key interest rates steady, but says future cuts may be necessary to protect the American economy from trade conflicts.
Seoul's defense minister gives a public apology following criticism of the military's failure to spot a North Korean boat drifting for days in South Korean waters.
And South Korea celebrates the 10th anniversary of its royal tombs from the Joseon Dynasty being recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noaram.
And I'm Han-daeun. Welcome to our program. We begin in Pyeongyang, where North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks of high significance just a few hours ago. President Xi was reportedly greeted with a 21-gun salute, thousands of balloons, and an endless wave of ardent cheers on the streets.
For more, let's connect to our Foreign Ministry correspondent Lee Ji-won, who is at the ministry in Seoul. Ji-won, what do you know so far?
Adam, China state-run television CCTV reported that the two leaders started their summit slightly past 4 p.m. local time. But we're not yet sure of how long the meeting was, who participated in the talks, or where it took place. Now, as for what the agenda may have been, Beijing's Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson Lu Kang said earlier in a briefing that the two sides will discuss their bilateral relations as well as issues on the Korean Peninsula. Now, Chinese President Xi landed in Pyeongyang at around 11:40 this morning, together with his wife Peng Liyuan and several top aides, including Foreign Minister Wang Yi, top diplomat Yang Jiechi, and key economic advisor He Lifang. China's Xinhua news agency reported that President Xi was warmly welcomed with a grand ceremony at the Pyeongyang Sunan International Airport, where North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife Lee Seol-ju were present. High-level North Korean officials, including Kim's sister Kim Yo-jong and Foreign Affairs Minister Lee Yong-ho, are also said to have been at the site. It's also reported that some 10,000 North Koreans were there, waving flowers and the North Korean and Chinese flags, as well as banners that read, "Long live the unbreakable friendship between North Korea and China."
Now, Ji-won, Xi's visit will be the shortest of all the Chinese president's visits previously to North Korea. He's set to leave tomorrow. So could you tell us what he might do and where he might visit?
Well, upon arrival, Xi and his delegates were first taken to the Kumsusan Taeyeonggungjeon, also known as Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the North's founding leader Kim Il-sung and his successor Kim Jong-il's embalmed bodies lie. At the square, Xi and Peng, in the company of Kim and Lee, were reportedly saluted by North Korean officials and their people. And China's Xinhua news agency said it's the first time a foreign leader has been honored at the highly symbolic site, which it said shows Kim's hospitality and respect for Xi. The two are also expected to hold a banquet today. Now, as for tomorrow, the two leaders are to visit the Sino-Korean Friendship Tower, which is known as the symbol of the Allies' friendship. It's also speculated that the leaders will then have a luncheon, followed by another round of talks before Xi heads back. That's all from me for now. Back to you guys.
Well, not much is revealed about this meeting of high significance, but do keep us posted throughout this evening. North Korean and Chinese media are both highlighting the significance of, quote, unbreakable friendship between Pyeongyang and Beijing.
North Korean state media welcomed Xi's visit, saying it would further strengthen what it called its blood ties with China. Oh Jung-hee tells us more.
North Korean and Chinese media set the tone for the fifth summit between Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping on Thursday, highlighting some positive prospects. Pyongyang's ruling party newspaper Rodong-sinmun, quote, fervently welcomed the Chinese president's visit, saying it will further strengthen the two sides' quote, blood ties. It stressed that Xi visiting the regime amidst some ongoing critical international affairs shows that China puts much weight on its friendship with the North. Pyongyang and Beijing celebrate 70 years of diplomatic ties this year. The paper reiterated that the North aims to further develop its relations with China, saying strong relations help secure the two's interests, as well as help peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and in the region. Reports from China focused more on claiming that China should have a bigger role in resolving the Korean Peninsula issue. On Thursday, Beijing's Hwan Cho-shuba wrote that Pyongyang and Beijing's friendship is a positive asset that can help solve the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. While many speculated that the Chinese leader chose to visit the North to show Beijing's still strong influence over North Korea amid its ongoing trade war with the U.S., the paper refuted such claims, saying their relationship is only to secure each of their long-term interests and is not at all, quote, opportunistic. It pointed out some do not want China participating and exerting influence to create a roadmap towards denuclearization. Chinese President Xi Jinping has previously implied that he'll take up a greater role in discussions surrounding the Korean Peninsula, writing in the North's Rodong Sinmun on Wednesday that Beijing is willing to draft together with North Korea some grand plans for lasting peace in the region. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the timing of President Xi's state visit is also worth noting, as it comes only a week ahead of the G20 summit in Japan, where the leaders of China, the US and South Korea will all be under one roof.
Our Oh Soo-young explores what this visit could mean for Pyongyang and Beijing and its implications for Seoul and Washington.
Why now and what for? Chinese President Xi Jinping is visiting the North Korean capital for the first time since he took power in 2013. Although his counterpart Kim Jong-un has previously travelled to Beijing 4 times for face-to-face meetings. Regarding the timing of Xi's visit, days before he's scheduled to meet with US President Donald Trump, a number of observers say it's a visit staged for optics.
At this juncture, ahead of the US-China negotiations at the G20 summit, Xi's visit can increase Beijing's bargaining power against Washington by showing that it has strong influence over North Korea as its traditional ally.
The expert says it's clear what North Korea hopes to gain from the Chinese leader's visit. Some sort of economic cooperation as Pyongyang reels from the international community's sanctions pressure against its nuclear missile program, and a bigger bargaining chip for its denuclearization talks with the US.
Pyongyang can show off its friendly ties with Beijing during the visit, and it may serve as a new trump card amid the stalled denuclearization talks with Washington.
But will the show of force between the two neighbors trigger a reaction from Washington?
I think Trump's looking for is delaying this thing. All right, we'll play of time. Oh, good, he's a good guy. We like it. Oh, we'll meet him. But time is on U.S. side. China is different than China 6 years ago. They have their own problems. Almost every citizen out there Hong Kong and protesting China, and this is beginning. Next, as I said, Taiwan is coming next. Yeah, right now, they are not in position to think about North Korea's problem. Oh, they can political gesture, a lot of talk, but I don't know, they can really help them monetarily. I doubt it very much.
What the rare visit to Pyongyang means to both sides and its implications remain to be seen, but observers say it's clear for now that there's more symbolism than substance. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Given the opaque characteristics of North Korea and China, it's unlikely much will be revealed about the much-anticipated talks between Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping.
Let's take a closer look at the summit now, and to help us with that, we have Dr. Kim Jongsoo, advisor for the Korea Research Institute for National Strategy. Thank you for coming in today, Dr. Kim.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Let's get straight to it. President Xi Jinping, in a rare move, he wrote an op-ed for North Korea's official newspaper, the Rodong Sinmun, ahead of his trip to North Korea. He said China is happy to see a historic opportunity to resolve Korean peninsula issues. He also stressed that Beijing is willing to draft together with Pyongyang a long-term plan in establishing peace, lasting peace in the region. What do you think those plans could be, and what do you think would be Xi's approach to North Korea's denuclearization?
You know, this is a really rare opportunity that Mr. Xi Jinping wrote that op-ed in the North Korean newspaper just ahead of his visit to Pyongyang. I think this carries significant strategic significance because now he's heading for the next week's G20 meeting in Osaka, and he's actually conflicting with Mr. Trump in almost every front, like Huawei or the tech, and also like Hong Kong riots and something like. So this is a really, very strong, even stronger rivalry between the two giants. So I think this is trying to take the initiative, that I'm not that easy. I'm going to fight to the end. So this is our strategy, negotiation strategy. This is a card I can use at our meeting in Osaka, and also some other potential meetings in the future. So I think this is a very important prerogative move by Mr. Xi Jinping. And this is not only for Mr. Trump, but also for North Koreans and the Chinese as well, because this really marks the 70th anniversary of their relationship. And also remember how many North Chinese were dead. Several hundred thousands were perished during the Korean War, and which they still believe this is a anti-Japanese, anti-American, and helping North Korean war. This is a very justified war for the Chinese and North Koreans. So this, by visiting these kind of very sites, possibly tomorrow at the Sino-North Korean Friendship Tower tomorrow, I think this will be a very highly symbolic, not only to the past history of the two countries, but also the current and future. I think this is, even though it is a very rare and short visit, this has very tremendous significance you can imagine out of this short visit.
Now, here in South Korea, Seoul announced yesterday it'll offer 50,000 tons of rice to North Korea, which is in addition to its previously announced $8 million humanitarian aid. Do you think President Xi will follow suit and provide economic support to North Korea?
I think he will not follow the suit. Actually, we are going to follow his suit because during the 4 meetings in the past, they offered a lot of rice and fertilizer to North Koreans already. So I think this will be the problem with how much and when they're going to provide this kind of assistance to North Koreans again. I think definitely they're going to provide some assistance to North Korea because when they need this kind of fertilizer and grain, when they are needed most, it is really worth supplying all these necessities to North Koreans. I think that will be some announcement that Chinese leaders will be willing to provide this amount of fertilizers and rice to North Koreans, plus some other extra gifts, I guess.
Okay, Dr. Kim, I'm afraid that's where we'll have to leave things for now. Sorry for the constrained time. Don't go too far, though. You will be back with us for News in Depth after our newscast.
Thanks, my pleasure. My pleasure.
The newscast. Okay. Right, shifting gears now, and the U.S. Treasury Department has announced new sanctions targeting a Russian financial firm for helping North Korea channel funds into its nuclear weapons program.
The move is seen as a warning against Pyongyang's ally Beijing, as it came on the eve of President Xi's visit to North Korea. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Washington has imposed fresh sanctions on a Russian financial company for allegedly helping Pyongyang evade sanctions. The U.S. Treasury Department said Wednesday that its sanctions target Russian Financial Society, which has provided financial services to Dandong Zhongsheng Industry and Trade, a North Korea-controlled entity based in China. It also accused the Russian company of opening multiple bank accounts for a representative of Korea Zinc Industrial Group, which had already been designated under Washington's sanction program. The statement explained that Russian Financial Society has helped the North channel funds to the regime's nuclear weapons program. The new sanctions freeze all of the Russian financial firm's U.S.-based property. The latest move comes just 3 months after Washington announced North Korea-related sanctions targeting 2 Chinese shipping firms. But U.S. President Donald Trump sparked confusion by tweeting a day later that additional sanctions were not necessary. The announcement of the new sanctions, which comes on the eve of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to North Korea, is also interpreted as a warning message to Beijing. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Seoul's defense minister apologized to the South Korean people following heavy criticism over the military's handling of the situation concerning a North Korean fishing boat that crossed into South Korean waters last week and went undetected for more than 3 days. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the latest.
Seoul's defense minister bowed down to the public for the various suspicions raised during the military's involvement in a North Korean fishing boat incident, vowing to regain public trust in the military and reprimand those responsible.
The military is gravely aware of the situation and offers its deepest apology to the people. With this incident, the military will tighten its operational and work discipline and penalize those responsible after a thorough inspection of the military's security operations.
The Defense Ministry has set up an investigation team to launch a probe into the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as the Navy and Army troops in charge of maritime surveillance. The military's failure to secure maritime borders, false reporting, as well as concealment of the incident from the public are being cited as main contentious issues of the probe, particularly regarding the military's ambiguous response regarding where they first found the North Korean boat. Officials first implied the boat was drifting at sea, but acknowledged later upon local media reports that the boat was in fact near the eastern shore. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon also apologized to the public for the concerns stemming from the incident, adding the investigation findings will be provided to the public in a transparent manner. Rival parties, meanwhile, heavily criticized the government and the military and called for a thorough investigation as well as punitive measures for those responsible. Democratic Party floor leader Lee In-young vowed to work with the government to come up with preventative measures, but stressed the incident is irrelevant when it comes to the comprehensive military agreement signed by the two Koreas last September. The main opposition Liberty Korea Party floor leader Da Kyung-won said the boat incident is not something that should be taken lightly, as it shows how the inter-Korean military agreement have led to a complete flaw in national security. Oh Shin-wan, floor leader of the minor opposition Bareunmirae Party, called for Jung's resignation as well as a parliamentary probe into the matter. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has kept interest rates steady but has hinted at rate cuts in the future. This comes as the U.S. economy continues to face uncertainties such as ongoing trade tensions with China. Her Ko Ryun-hee reports.
The Federal Reserve held its benchmark interest rate steady on Wednesday at a range of 2.25 to 2.5%. The key interest rate, which has remained unchanged since December last year, affects various consumer rates such as those for credit cards and mortgages and the interest paid to savers. The Fed said the U.S. labor market remains strong and economic activity is moderately increasing. However, the phrase moderately increasing is a downgrade from solid, and the central bank pointed to uncertainties coming from slower global economic growth and trade conflicts, signaling possible cuts in the future.
In light of increased uncertainties and muted inflation pressures, we now emphasize that the committee will closely monitor the implications of incoming information for the economic outlook and will act as appropriate to sustain the expansion with a strong labor market and inflation near its 2% objective.
The Fed also dropped a reference to being patient about adjusting rates in its statement, which is another signal for cutting rates for the first time in more than 10 years. The decision to freeze the rate was approved by a 9-1 vote. James Bullard, president of the Fed's St. Louis Regional Bank, disagrees, saying the Fed should begin cutting rates now. It marked the first disapproval since February last year. Since 2015, the Fed has raised rates 9 times, and it hiked them 4 times last year alone. Some analysts predict the Fed will wait until September to announce a rate cut, while others predict none will happen this year if Washington and Beijing agree on a trade deal in the near future. The Fed's announcement comes despite President Trump heaping political pressure on the Fed to cut rates, as he seeks to bolster his 2020 re-election campaign, which is sharply focused on economic prosperity in the U.S. After Bloomberg reported that the White House has explored the possibility of legally demoting the Fed chairman, Powell said he thinks the law is clear that he has a 4-year term and he fully intends to serve it. South Korea's central bank also kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 1.75% in May, leaving the difference between Seoul and Washington's rates at 0.5 to 0.75 percentage points. When asked whether the Fed's decision will affect rate decisions in Korea, Bank of Korea Chief Lee Ju-yeol said many countries consider the U.S. decision, but don't automatically follow it. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
A sobering report from Korea's central bank shows that more Korean companies are struggling to pay back interest on their debt. Our business correspondent Kim Sung with the details.
1 out of 3 Korean firms were unable to make interest payments on their debt using just their earnings. According to the Bank of Korea's Financial Stability Report Thursday, out of the 21,000 Korean firms surveyed, 32% had an interest coverage ratio below 1, the highest figure since 2010. The interest coverage ratio is calculated by dividing a company's operating profit by its interest expenses. A ratio below 1 means the firm's interest payment obligations are higher than its reported earnings over the cited period. Around 24% of large-sized companies had an interest coverage ratio below 1, while 34% of small and mid-sized firms had a ratio that fell short of that threshold. 14% of all companies were classified as zombie firms, unable to meet debt obligations with their earnings for 3 straight years. By sector, shipbuilding, autos, lodging, and dining saw a high proportion of companies with an interest coverage ratio below 1. The central bank attributed this to falling corporate profits and higher borrowing costs that were seen last year. It added that if business conditions deteriorate amid the escalating U.S.-China trade spat, those with an interest coverage ratio below 1 could surpass 37%. As for household debt, the pace of debt growth slowed to around 5% on year, with total debt amounting to $1.3 trillion at the end of the first quarter. But the ratio of household debt to disposable income was seen at 158% as of the end of March, up nearly 2 percentage points compared to a year ago. That means household debt grew at a faster pace than household income, a serious concern for Korean families and their financial health. Kim Sung, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in says irregularities that have taken root in Korean society must be eradicated and that fairness and equality must be firmly established. Presiding over a meeting with the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission at the Blue House earlier today, the president strongly emphasized that the country must rid itself of corruption.
반칙과 특권은 국민의 평등권과 행복 추구권을 근본부터 부정하는 행위입니다. 누구나 평등한 기회를 가져야 하고 실패해도 다시 도전할 수 있어야 합니다.
President Moon says young people will lose hope and won't pursue their dreams if society does not offer equal opportunities. He also called on the National Tax Service and other relevant ministries to use all possible means to prevent delinquent taxpayers from hiding their wealth and high-income earners from enjoying unfair privileges. A South Korean civic group has unveiled a newly discovered map from the Japanese government that recognizes Korea's ownership of the easternmost Dokdo islets. The map has the official government seal, while the one usually referenced by the Japanese Foreign Ministry does not. The foundation also questioned the authenticity of the map that the ministry has referred to. The Dokdo Foundation said a Japanese pastor will publicize several other maps at a conference tomorrow, which contradict Japan's foreign ministry's claims of its ownership of Dokdo. South Korea is celebrating the 10th anniversary of its royal tombs from the Joseon Dynasty being recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Our Kan Hyung-woo tells us how the tombs are remembered and cherished for their cultural importance and unique beauty.
Collecting stamps to learn about the kings and queens of the Joseon Dynasty's 500-year-long history and receive small gifts. This is one of the programs the Cultural Heritage Foundation has put together to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the royal tombs being designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. This is called the King's Way. The path was used for the royal ancestral ceremony by the kings of the Joseon Dynasty. Visitors can walk along the path and experience how the Joseon royalty used to honor their ancestors. Starting Friday, the government has prepared several events such as a special photo exhibition, commemorative ceremony, and scholarly forum. But it's looking to attract the public with more hands-on activities.
From this point on, we will focus on organizing more hands-on and enjoyable programs and events for the public so that people can feel closer to the cultural heritage of the royal tombs.
South Korea has been focusing on restoring and preserving the royal tombs of the Joseon Dynasty since they were designated as UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites in June 2009 for their historical value, cultural importance, and scenic beauty.
The pine trees over at the Gangnam Royal Tomb are quite amazing, but I feel like not many people know about it. So I wish more people would come to see the sites and enjoy the nature here.
It's really peaceful. I'm here to just kind of see what it's about and the history behind it. And it's fairly pretty as well with all the nature and the architecture.
All 40 of the royal Joseon tombs will be open to the public for free on June 30th, the last day of the celebration period. 간영우, Arirang News.
A global invention expo for women kicked off today in Korea to promote female inventors with bright ideas. There you can find products that are not only unique but also benefit our community. Our Yoon Jung-min has the story.
To support female inventors from around the world, the Korea International Women's Invention Exposition opened on Thursday. This year, some 180 female inventors and entrepreneurs from 30 countries, including China, India, and Canada, are expected to gather at the Kintex Convention Center in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province. The inventions at the expo fall under 6 different themes, all of which benefit the community. One theme is making an inclusive society. Kim Ji-hee invented an IoT robot that provides social care to the elderly. The robot has sensors on its body and can speak when people pet it. It also reminds the elderly of their meal times or when it's time to take medicine. Kim expects this AI robot doll to be a great help to the elderly who live alone.
I made this robot look like a 6 or 7-year-old child because I wanted to make the elderly feel more comfortable. Seniors who live alone usually feel depressed and isolated, but with this robot doll, they say they feel less lonely.
Another theme is making an eco-friendly society. These stainless steel straws have gained much attention at the expo. They can help reduce the use of plastic straws because they can be divided in half so that people can wash and reuse them. Other inventions combined tradition and modernity. Under the theme of tradition, crafts, and future, speaker equipment is decorated with Korean traditional patterns made using mother of pearl.
We promote women investors who have ideas that improve our daily life. We run classes and host competitions. The winners will be given the chance to commercialize their ideas, and their products are displayed here at this expo. All these efforts create economic self-reliance and help the inventors become entrepreneurs.
The 12th Women's Invention Expo runs until this Sunday. During the 4-day event, the expo aims to help promote women inventors not just in Korea but worldwide. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The Seoul Metropolitan Government has set up an exhibition pavilion where visitors can learn more about the innovation that'll be part of our future roads and sidewalks. Our Won Jung-hwan has more on the so-called Pavement Block Expo.
People often walk on top of pavements unaware of how much science has been put into them. Since 2013, Seoul Metropolitan Government has been promoting its innovative walking and pedestrian-related technology to the public through the Pavement Block Expo. The 6th edition of the expo held at Seoul Plaza provided a platform for people to learn about the functionality and aesthetics of pedestrian block that is an integral part of our day-to-day lives. 23 companies have participated at the expo, showing how their cutting-edge technology helps not only people but also the environment in the city. Indeed, most of the companies have showcased their products which focused highly on the environment and explained how urbanization can actually help tackle such environmental issues. And this particular company says they have developed a permeable block which can efficiently absorb and drain waters from the rain.
This block is for the control of sudden rainfall or lack of groundwater. When it rains, the water permeates really quickly into the groundwater control tank. Also during monsoon season and summer, it helps pedestrians as there won't be any puddles.
And among many other new technologies showcased at the expo, almost everyone stopped in front of a booth that showed ways to reduce fine dust in the air. The science behind the eco-friendly pavement and dissolving fine dust works like this.
There's a substance called photocatalyst on each of the blocks. When these coated pavement slabs absorb sunlight, they emit their own substance that dissolves the nitrogen oxide that is found in air with high concentrations of fine dust.
The researcher explained that if the pavement is adopted, it can reduce 30 to 35% of fine dust in the air. The annual Expo provides a chance to take a look at how Seoul plans to gradually expand state-of-the-art pavement throughout the city and make use of surfacing techniques for all future maintenance work on pavement and roads for one ultimate purpose, improving the people's quality of life. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea's producer prices remained flat in May, breaking a 3-month uptrend. The Bank of Korea says the production price index, a key barometer of future consumer inflation, stood at 103.7 last month. Industrial and electronic goods prices rose slightly, but agricultural goods prices fell more than 2% on increasing supply. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer says he expects to meet with his Chinese counterpart ahead of next week's G20 summit in Japan. At a congressional hearing on Wednesday, Lighthizer said he will speak with Chinese Vice Premier Liu He over the phone and expects to meet him along with U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin in Osaka before President Trump sits down with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the summit. Lighthizer expressed hopes of reaching some kind of trade agreement. A new airport will open on Jeju Island in 2025, which will only handle domestic flights. The government believes the new airport will alleviate inconveniences for domestic travellers during peak seasons and also serve as a backup for when Jeju International Airport is forced to shut down due to bad weather. The ministry estimates around 19 million passengers to use the new airport every year. As the US-China trade war rages on, Apple is reportedly looking into moving some of its manufacturing out of China and restructuring its supply chain. According to Japan's Nikkei Asian Review on Wednesday, the tech giant has asked its major suppliers to assess the cost implications of moving 15 to 30% of their production capacity from China to Southeast Asia. Growing risks from its heavy dependence on manufacturing in China have been cited as Apple's reason for considering such an option. That has been your 3-minute news flash.
The nation was under sunnier skies today, along with some heat, but cooler conditions lie ahead with rain in the forecast for tomorrow.
Let's get more on the weather from our trusty Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. Like you've mentioned, another bout of rain is expected to fall in the northern parts of the peninsula starting noon tomorrow, along with Pyeongyang and Tokyo. And by 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., rain will have drenched the central areas, which will expand out to Chungcheongdo and also Gyeongsang provinces until midnight. And morning lows aren't too different from today's, with Seoul and most of the nation kicking off between 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. And into the day, Seoul's temperature will remain cool at 26 degrees. However, the southern regions are expected to stay hot, lingering in the 30s. Now, the capital region will have a mild weekend, whereas another storm system will travel down south. And by mid-next week, we are expecting the year's first monsoon rain starting from the far south. I'll leave you with weather conditions around the world.
Well, that will wrap it up for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Stay tuned for more analysis on the symbolic summit between Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping coming up on News in Depth next.